Hey, now it says we're live. Welcome everybody back to Sandhills Shooter channel. My name is Sandhills Shooter. For those of you that don't know me as that, you can call me John. Call me anything you want to, I guess. Just don't call me late for supper. Right next to me, taking up her position right off camera, I have my lovely bride, Sandhills Sweetheart, next to me. Say hello, dear.
Hello.
All right, so we're going to give everybody a little bit of time to find the notifications, and we'll go through and say hi to everybody who's out in the chat already. We've got Joe Smith, we've got Cam94, we've got the Poor Conservative. These are all people that I've been interacting with a little bit on YouTube over some of my other videos, making comments and stuff. These seem like a couple of solid people out here. We've got, who else? Gizzard Gary is in the house on the YouTube side and in the chat. Stealth Hunter 1000. We've got Sandhills Sweetheart is out here. We've got Budget Guns and Gear there and here. Rob C. Double A is out there. Grim 90. Who else am I missing? Boop Sweat is here. We've got Calaveras, the Tactical Pickles in the house. There is, oh, they're going too fast now all of a sudden. I can't scroll. Bass Boy is here. Is it Bass Boy or Bass Boy? I don't know.
Bass Boy.
Bass Boy sounds so much cooler. It sounds like a rap group from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of.
I was hoping it was Bass, but it's Bass.
Bass Boy, it sounds cool. That's kind of like when I tell people I'm a crappie fisherman or I'm a crappy fisherman. It just kind of depends on the day, really. So Kinky Sphincter is out in there. Thank you for letting me say that on air. That's awesome. Gunpowder Beauty's in the house. Grim 90, Midnight Range TM, Yoder, Texas, Tacos and French Fries has finally made it over onto one of my chats so he can make everybody hungry. Squib is there and here. Frank Hellman. So I think I've got just about everybody. Phoenix, Obnoxious One. Angelina's there and here. So we will let everybody introduce themselves. Real quick, anybody who is part of Gun Channels, I have posted a link to the chat. There's a few spots left, so people can get in. Yeah, we've got phone calls coming in. So go over to Gun Channels, find the Sandhills Shooter channel over there, and you can get a link if you want to get in here. If you're not a member of Gun Channels, you better hurry and get signed up. It's free, and you can join us too. We've got Grandpa Stan is in here as well, so that's awesome. All right, so we're going to let everybody say hi real quick before we get into stuff. We'll just start over here on my left. It looks like these are all kind of arranged alphabetically for the most part. So, Angelina, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Definitely.
Moving right along, we have got Gizzard Gary, everybody's favorite clucking tactical rooster.
Thanks for the invite, sir. Glad to be here.
Absolutely glad to have you. We've got another newbie in the chat. We've got, oh shoot, Frankie, tell me, all I can see is glitter now, and I just drew a blank.
It's okay. Frankie, apologize for my name not matching. I'm in Google name change jail.
Uh-oh.
I'm trying every day, I swear. It's going to get fixed.
You know, by the time that 90 days goes by, you just as well leave it. Because people will know you by then. So to go back is sometimes almost counterproductive. But welcome, Frankie, or Glittering Guns, or whichever you prefer to be called here. Moving right along, we've got Kingpin with us. What's up, David?
Good evening, sir. Hello, everybody.
All right, and I think another newbie. I don't think you've been with us in one of these live chats yet either, Budget Guns and Gear.
I don't think I have. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, holding it down over on the east half of the country. Speaking of the east half of the country, just north of him, we've got Squibload, who may or may not be able to say hi. I know Squib was trying to squeeze in a late lunch break before the end of his shift. Here a while ago when he joined us, and then Squib's probably back at work. So we'll let you say hi. Oh,
hi. Yeah, try running away from, I don't even want to talk about it.
That's okay. We
How's
know
everybody out there?
we get it. We know that when we start, you're still at work, and that
It's
work
like,
always comes.
Chatty Cathy, go find something to do. Okay, so if Grim 90's out there listening, yeah, dude, that ice that you told me about that would be on my truck, yeah, it was out there. Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
So really, it's not me you're mad at. It's actually Grim that you're mad
No,
at.
no. He told me what he had to scrape off, and I said, oh yeah, I was out earlier, and it wasn't that thick. And I don't know what, maybe an hour and a half has passed since that, and it's there. But no, I think you sent it here.
Well,
I blame you and Travis for all the weather we get here in Michigan.
Well, it starts with us and then it ends up with you, and it's usually worse by then. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Rupan will get it next. So, well, I mean, food Travis, then Rupan, and yeah. So I guess they can blame me.
Well, and that's just what I was going to say is that any weather that I get usually comes from Travis. So you can blame me all you want, but I didn't do it. We're just gonna pass the buck on to the Travi Collective.
It all starts with me.
It's part of his bid for world domination. First, he ices the world over, and then he takes the world over. So, speaking of the Travi Collective, Travis P11, what's up?
Hey, not much, man. Just a cheap plug for the channel as usual. Make sure you check out Caliber Corner Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, the only time zone that really matters. We've got all kinds of different topics we cover. People we see on this panel or sometimes on the show, and it's 8 a.m. Central Time over on gunchannels.com. So appreciate the invite, man. Thank you.
All right, and real quick here, WD Tony says he's out in the chat. I'm sorry that you didn't get that link email. Let me find that and send it back to you again here. I'll do this off my phone. Talk amongst yourselves, and I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to let everybody. We're going to kind of go around the horn. The first thing we're going to establish is before we get too far into the meat and potatoes, we just want to establish where people believe life begins. So while I send this, Travis, if you want to kind of take over for a second and call on people and kind of go in turn, we'll just establish where we are as far as where life begins, whether it's conception or when they first breathe air, heartbeat, brain activity, whatever it is. We kind of want to know where people are starting from.
For me, I guess I'd have to say, brain activity, nerve development, some sort of cognition, I suppose. I don't really know how far into the term that would be. We don't have kids. So, I mean, other than, studying this kind of thing in high school, I don't really know the dates and times when things officially happen. I do want to go with what Tony said on my podcast last weekend. Pretty much, if there's a heartbeat, it's alive. So that's kind of, that's kind of my take on it. But.
Awesome. Oops. All right. That email is being sent, WD. So we will get you in here. There's still room for now. We haven't had the room fill up yet. So we'll get Tony in here and he can tell us a little bit about himself as well. So, all right. Well, now that I've got that sent, we'll just move back over to Squib. If you can talk, for you, where does life actually begin? At what point in the development process?
Yeah, let me see if I can duck in here. For me, I think it's when there's actual consciousness, because you could say a heartbeat is life. How many people are brain dead on the machine at the hospital and the doctor says it's time to unplug them, right? They got a heartbeat, they're breathing, but they're not really alive, right? There's no brain activity. And even then, I'd say brain activity to a point where you've got consciousness, memory, the ability to dream, to think, cognitive thought, kind of not really so much lower brain activity that just makes your heart beat and make you breathe. So,
okay, all righty. Budget. Where do you think it starts?
At the development of the brain, approximately 4 weeks after conception.
Okay,
that's my stance on it.
All righty, Kingpin.
I'm going to go anywhere from 5 to, say, 20 days after conception. So, right after conception, you've got your own separate DNA. You're not a lump of cells. You're going to become a person. The difference between a heartbeat in the womb and a heartbeat at 95 years old on a bed is one's beginning to live, one's about to die. You know, I think there's very distinct differences there. So, yeah, very shortly after conception.
All righty. And Frankie, where do you think it begins?
I'm going to go with the moment of conception.
Okay. All righty. Giz or Gary?
Well, I believe that life begins at the moment of conception, because left alone and left for everything to proceed as normal, that will become a viable life unless it's interrupted.
Okay. All right. Angelina?
My answer is pretty much the same as Squib's.
Okay. So cognitive brain function and
Yep. Aside from just your body working as it should, yeah, like, you know, some kind of consciousness.
Okay. All righty. And my lovely bride, Sandhills sweetheart, where does life begin in your mind?
At conception.
At conception, which is also how I feel. And again, I kind of agree exactly with what Gary had said. When as soon as that egg gets fertilized, it has 23 pairs of chromosomes. That thing is never going to grow into a tree. It's never going to grow into a chicken or you know, a dog or anything else. It's always going to be a human. I'm going to go ahead and mute you for a second there, Angelina. Nope, that might be time. Sorry, Angelina. That must have been Tony. All right, we're going to give everybody, we're going to give Tony a chance to kind of figure out this Hangouts chat. He's new. Down at the bottom of the screen, Tony, if you can see all of our pictures, if you tap the screen again on your phone, then you can get your camera and your mute button and all that. And we do have you muted, so the sound isn't coming through. But if you can find that unmute button, go ahead and just say hi and introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Took me a while to get on here, but finally made it. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Coming through loud and clear.
All right. Now, yeah, I was listening in while I was logging on, and I got some bits and pieces of what people were talking about. I'd say, where does life begin? Is that where we are still?
Yep. And you can just, I guess for the most part, since nobody here has seen you in a chat before, if you want to just introduce yourself and, you know, tell people where you're coming from and you know, such as that, you can do that too. And then, yeah, just end it with where, in your mind, where life begins, at what point.
Okay. My name's Tony. I live in Northern Kentucky, right up here by Covcath, where all those kids are in the news all the time. So that's been a little bit of a circus. I got my little 3-year-old here. Hopefully he won't be too loud when we're talking. And yeah, so that's it. That's my name and where I am here in Kentucky, or just South Cincinnati. And, you know, I don't know. I would have to agree with most people. If we're just asking a question, when does life begin? I would say pretty early on. You know, not an ovum stage, probably more like between, what is it, zygote and embryo, right before it's probably considered a fetus. So pretty early on, I'd call it life, to give you just a basic answer.
Okay. And I have to admit that I'd have to go back and open a biology book to remember the difference between embryo and zygote and fetus, and at what stage they go from one to the other.
Yeah, it's confusing.
But I mean, I don't think we need to split hairs with the semantics. I think we all understand what you're saying there. So, alrighty. And yeah, what I was saying is that for me, we go ahead and when you're done there, if you would, WD, and just go ahead and mute yourself.
All right.
Daddy.
There you go. That way we don't have the little one walking over everybody else there. Perfect. Just because once that egg is fertilized, it's going to grow into a human being, no matter no matter what path that takes, whether there's going to be any kind of birth defects or anything like that, it's still going to be a human being. So for me, that's where I believe that the life begins. That cell becomes a living organism. It's dividing, and it's not the body of the mother who conceived it. So all right. So I guess the reason that I find that to be very, very important is if we don't know where we're all starting from, then we definitely don't, it leaves a lot of unanswered questions once we start talking about, what we feel, what we think, and things like that. So at this point, now that we've kind of gone around the horn, I'm not going to keep doing that. We're going to do everything we can to keep this, of course, civil. As far as everybody out in the chat side, YouTube and gun channels both, and hopefully I've got a few people watching each side there for moderators. But if we get heated up on this topic, that's okay. If two people out there decide that they want to have an actual discussion and they're not going at each other, they're bringing viewpoints, but they're not calling each other nastiness or insulting each other's intelligence or whatever. We're going to let people talk. It's kind of like in a hockey game where, as long as two guys haven't dropped their gloves, then we'll just kind of let the jawing go back and forth and maybe a little bit of feathers getting ruffled. But if two people actually decide they want to go at each other, then we'll step in and we'll stop that. So everybody gets a warning that you can be warned, you can be placed in timeout. If you do get banned from the chat by anybody but myself, then you'll be welcome back. And I've never banned anybody yet, so I don't think we're going to have a problem there. For everybody involved, whether you're in the panel or out in the chat, just keep one thing in mind on our channel. We try to keep the chat classy and clean, so no nasty language, and no F-bombs, things like that. We do have I've got some family members. I've got some aunts, uncles that watch this. I just want to make sure that people that know me and expect me to run a tight ship, they see me doing the same thing out here in Cyberland too. So having said that, we'll kind of get into it. I guess the first thing I kind of want to talk about just came up today in the state of New York. I just read an article this evening where the state Senate did pass a bill today that will allow for, of course, it's not a law yet, but it did pass the Senate. It would allow for abortions to happen clear up until birth. In not every situation, but in certain circumstances, that would be okay. So does anybody have any opinions as far as late-term abortions go?
Now, when you say that they're allowing it up to birth, is that for situations of incest or the mother's life is endangered only? Or is it going to be just, I was kind of curious what they're going to allow for that.
I'd like to know. I haven't read the body of the bill for sure. Basically, the summary that I got was that in medical circumstances, if a doctor warrants that the life of the mother could be in danger or something like that, it could be allowable.
Yeah.
Those statistics lean to very, very rarely ever happening. Yeah, it's especially in today's medicine, with modern medicine and technology, the mother's life being at risk due to pregnancy, and actually in a late term situation where the mother's going to die if you don't remove the baby, is so rare. Same with the incest. That's an argument that I hear all the time, is the incest and the life of the mother. And I would be willing to concede that, and I will give you that if you can prove that there was incest or rape and the mother wants to have the abortion, or that the doctor truly says that this woman is about to die here because she has this baby in her, I'll concede that if you take away the rest of the birth control abortion. In other words, just getting rid of a baby because you don't want it.
Yeah.
which is pretty much my stance on it. You know, abortion as a means of birth control, not acceptable in my opinion. But in instances of rape and the health of the mother, where you know a medical doctor will say yes, this is absolutely necessary, or she'll die. Well, then I can see it. Rape, obviously, you know, I don't think that a woman should be forced to carry the product of a rape, but I think that you can make that decision a little bit sooner than late term.
Sure, absolutely.
Well, the way I've always seen it is if somebody does something to cause someone external other than the mother does something to cause her to lose the baby and can be charged with murder, you probably shouldn't be able to have an abortion.
Sure, exactly. Now, I've heard people bring up things like rape and incest, conceptions and things like that in the past. And I guess I should have started this whole night off with one disclaimer. I don't have all the answers. I don't think that I have an answer for every scenario we might bring up tonight. I definitely don't know everything, even though sometimes I do act like I'm doing it or act like I know everything. So having said that, I've thought about a lot of this. I've been having this conversation most of my life. Anybody who hasn't watched my personal story as far as right to life or freedom of choice or whatever, I do have a video out on that. You guys can go check that out later. But the short version is I was adopted when I was conceived. Roe versus Wade was already the law of the land. I'm not 46 years old yet, and so I could have legally been aborted, but my birth mother chose not to do that. She chose to actually carry me full term, give birth, go through all that pain, and then she gave me away to somebody who could raise me. And I had the best parents in the world, and I think I had 3 of the best parents in the world because of that. So having said that, I take it personally sometimes, more than I ought to, but I can't help but take it personally sometimes when we talk about abortion. And I've been talking about it for a long time. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I have met somebody who was raped as a high school age young lady. She did get pregnant from that, and she did not terminate her pregnancy. She gave birth to that baby, adopted that baby out, and again, he gets to grow up with now 4 parents because she's since gotten married and had kids of her own. But he's got his mom and dad who adopted him. He's also got a second set of parents, the lady who gave birth to him, who's very active in his life. And I guess the biggest question I have, and of course this is a rhetorical question, I've never been through the horror of a rape, but I just can't see that 9 months later, anybody who's been through that experience has forgotten about it. You know, who wants that reminder for 9 months of what happened? Anybody I've ever talked to who's been through that horrible, horrible thing, it's still just as vivid as the day that it happened to them, you know, years later. And so I don't necessarily think that is that good of it or that solid of an argument. I did do a little research. I was looking up some stuff on the internet earlier today. Apparently there's a study that was done by the research arm of Planned Parenthood called the Guttmacher Institute. And I don't remember now what year it said that this study was done, but they've kind of been tabulating this since 1973. About 15,000 abortions are attributed to rape and incest every year. That is somewhere between 1 and 1.5% of all abortions nationwide. So we're talking about a tiny amount of abortions here when we're talking about that particular instance. It seems like, in another study that was done, now this is an older study, but it's the only one I could find. Back in 1979, it was a doctor named Sandra Machorn, did a survey on pregnant rape victims. She found out that 75 to 85% chose to have that baby. So even the people who are undergoing such a horrible experience still aren't feeling that answering a horrible tragedy, an attack with another horrible tragic attack, is the right thing to do necessarily. So I guess has anybody else? I know that's one of the first things that gets thrown out there. In the case of a rape or an incest conception or things like that, we need to be able to do something. Well, are we projecting our own feelings upon those women, just assuming that they don't want to keep that baby, or at least give birth to that baby?
There's a good place, and I know it's not feasible for everybody. I live very close to it, but the March for Life that happened last Friday, that's a powerful place to go, and you can hear stories about women who have had tragic stuff like rape happen to them, and they had their babies, and I mean, there's a lot of really powerful stories about women who went through that and don't regret it. Obviously they're not happy at the fact that they were violated, but they are happy that they can look at their child and say, that's still my child.
I think it's kind of dependent on the woman and how she can handle things.
Say, that's still my child.
Oh, Ed, we're going to mute you. Okay, go ahead, Angelina.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of dependent on the woman and how she can handle things. I mean, I'm sure rape is extremely traumatic and, horrible. So if you feel like you absolutely, just, I got to be done with this, then yeah, I mean, you should totally get an abortion, but don't wait till month 9. Don't wait till month 6. Don't wait till month 5. Don't wait till month 4. You need to make an early decision. I mean, I don't condone abortion for birth control. I think if that's your method of birth control, you're incredibly irresponsible, and that's dangerous not only for, whatever, but for yourself. Just as a person, you can't go around getting constant abortions. That's not good for you. But I mean, somebody said, you shouldn't be able to get rid of a baby just because you don't want it. And I think it's more than that. It's more than you just don't want it. It's maybe not the right time for you or for this kid. You're going to have a kid and 2 years you're going to be homeless. So what kind of life is that?
Now, in that instance, are we still talking about somebody who was the victim of a sexual assault, or somebody who had unprotected sex and is treating baby more of an STD, and they just don't want it and they want to get rid of it?
I mean, either way, if you're having unprotected sex, number one, that's on you. You have a responsibility, especially women. I mean, this is a huge thing that you're the one that gets pregnant. A guy can get you pregnant and he can disappear the next day. You're the one that has the instance happen to you. So if you're not taking precautions, if you know right now you're not ready for a baby, you need to be taking precautions so that does not happen to you. And if it does happen to you, then either buck up and do it or get an abortion, but that better be the last abortion you get, because you better have learned.
Well, and I'm going to maybe step on some toes when I say this, but I think of somebody that I guess I wouldn't say I'm a friend or acquaintance, but someone of whom I was aware that another one of my friends knew here a long time ago that had been through more than one abortion, maybe more than 2 abortions in her life. To me, I can't think of a more clear definition in my mind of a monster than somebody who's done that and then went back and did it again. I can understand feeling like you're backed into a corner, you don't have any other choice. I can understand that mindset. I can understand the remorse, the regret, the PTSD like symptoms that come for the majority of women after the fact. But the ones that have no remorse and go and do the same thing over again and terminate another life, to me, like I said, that to me is what a monster would look like.
Yeah, and I mean, something like that. If I had a friend or a relative or whatever, and she said, whenever I get pregnant, instead, I just get an abortion and then bam, move on. I'm on my 5th, I got a punch card, whatever. I mean, I would say you're horrible. You're a horrible person because, like I said, if it happens to you once, that should be the only time, because you should have absolutely learned your lesson at that point. I mean, I personally have not had an abortion, but I mean, I know people who have, and it's horrible.
Do they give out punch cards at those places?
You know what? I know a girl. We used to call her Abortion Nicole. When I knew her last, she had 6 abortions, and she was not shy about it. And I would tell her all the time. I mean, I'm pro-choice. I absolutely will defend a woman's right to choose to the death. But if that's your method of birth control, something is mentally wrong with you.
There's a banner at the main abortion clinic in Baltimore. Like, it's got a glass front, and then there's a partition wall, and along that partition wall, the banner actually says, "Every child a wanted child." Now, to me, at an abortion clinic, that sounds like a wanted poster to me.
Well, to me, that sounds like it's okay to murder kids just because they're not wanted, that somehow their life is less important. They're less valued as a human being than the kids who are wanted, right?
I mean, I think people think of a toddler sitting there staring at you when it's an emotional thing. But I mean, if you get pregnant for, whether you were irresponsible or whatever, and you know that you cannot, provide for a child, you in no way can give that child a stable home. You don't even think you can be responsible enough to make it through a pregnancy for an adoption. Maybe you're a drug addict. I mean, absolutely. You need to do something about that, but then you also need to do something about yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely have no business. If you're not responsible enough to raise a child, I believe that you're not responsible enough to have consensual sexual intercourse either. But that's just me. I'm only responsible for my opinions here. I don't expect, like I said, I don't expect anybody to change their mind based off of how I feel. Now, real quick, we should say hi to Ed. Ed Cummins is in the group. He has joined us, so we're going to let you say hi real quick, introduce yourself, because, again, you haven't been part of one of our chats before.
Hey, all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. This is Boob Sweat.
Oh, what's up?
Hey, I kind of wanted to chime in here because my ex-wife and I actually had a medical issue while she was pregnant. 5 months into the pregnancy, we found out that the baby had triploidy syndrome. It is a genetic disorder, and the longest living baby outside of the womb is 10 months. And we were faced with a choice, and we ultimately chose to terminate the pregnancy.
So to you, the life of a baby with health issues is not as valued as a healthy baby?
Considering that the baby could have died in the womb, and we wouldn't have known for up to a week in between doctor's visits, I actually feel that threatened my ex-wife's life at that point.
Okay. Hold on here. I'm going to try and find a comment here that I was reading. Mel the Nut has said out there in the YouTube chat, if you make abortion illegal, you don't stop it. You only punish women for having one. Respectfully, Mel, if we made murder illegal, we wouldn't stop that either. We would only punish the people who commit it and get convicted of it. And, of course, the person who gets murdered would get punished first. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with that line of thinking, that we can condone it. Now, again, I'm definitely 100% against abortion, so that's where I'm coming from on that. All right. Anybody else have any thoughts, ideas, questions about medical issues that may be the life of the mother may be in jeopardy?
I think that if you already have children together and the doctor says, yeah, it's the baby or you, or no matter what, the baby's going to die and probably take you with, you need to make a decision as a couple. Do we want to risk it? Do we want to put this out there and risk it? Or is the family that is here, that exists, more important? Are the needs of the many, do they outweigh the needs of the few or the one? Like Star Trek, right? Now, for some people, sorry, I'm not going to do that. My wife and I have had this discussion, and if it comes down to her life or the kid's life, we both agree. She's dead. However, if the doctor said the baby's probably not going to make it or the baby isn't going to make it and might kill her too, and I've got 2, 3, 4 more kids at home, I can't say for sure that I wouldn't sacrifice the one for the other. Now, that being said, though, I have had arguments with people who do not have children who have said this to me. If my husband and my baby were drowning, I would save my husband because him and I can always go and make another baby.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I've had that argument more than once. That's kind of interesting. It's like, thank goodness you're just saying this hypothetically and you don't actually have children.
Yeah, no,
when you have children, your opinion about children changes. When you have children, it's supposed to, at least. For some people, maybe it doesn't, but it's supposed to. You're supposed to. This is your whole world. That doesn't mean you don't have your own life. It doesn't mean you're not an individual. It doesn't mean every single thing you do is for the kid. But you have to think about the kid before you do certain things. So in that situation where I already had children with my wife, and the doctor is saying, and we trusted the doctor, and the doctor saying the child may not survive, but the mother is not going to survive for sure, I think her and I would have to have a conversation. And if she was already under, and they said, we can't pull her out of this, you're going to have to make the decision. You're the husband. That would be a tough call to make. You know what I mean? Now, I realize that's a hypothetical.
Sure.
But sometimes you have to delve into the hypothetical for those rare instances where something happens and the law isn't clear on what to do. You know what I mean?
I do. Sandhills Sweetheart and I have had this same discussion. And I think that I can take the liberty of speaking for her. She feels the exact same way that I do about that particular instance. But if we were ever faced with that situation, and I thought there was any chance whatsoever that she would rather let a child die to save her own life, I would not have married her. That's not the kind of person that I want to spend my life with, and potentially, have a child with. And I know that she feels the same way. At least she does now. She's told me that her opinion on abortion has changed over the years. She and I feel the same way now. She didn't always feel that way. But I'm not gonna put her on the spot and throw her into the chat until she's ready to talk about it either. But I guess thinking of the hypothetical question, let me throw this one out just to kind of get the discussion going on this part too, because I've heard this one before. That's been posed. Basically, it's been posed, from what I can tell, as a gotcha from the pro-choice side of the argument against the pro-lifers, basically to trap them into making a choice here. But if you were in a burning building, and on one side of the room is a baby, a 6-month-old baby. On the other side of the room is a container with, a dozen fertilized eggs or embryos in whatever liquid nitrogen, in a container. But you can only grab one and get out of the burning building. Which one would you grab? And of course, it's the Kobayashi Maru. There's no right answer, because either way, if you believe life begins at conception the way that I do, there is there's no way that if you can only choose one, there's no right answer, correct? But the thing is, in my opinion, this question is flawed from its beginning, because knowing myself, I am going to get both out of the burning building, or I'm going to die trying. And
Okay.
that's been an acceptable answer to the people that pose the question. You have to pick just one. You know, in your perfect world scenario, maybe I can only pick just one, but if I can't carry a container and a baby, then I don't deserve to get out of that building, in my opinion. I'll figure out a way, or I'll die trying. I really will.
So let's take a look at what you just said, though. You believe that life begins at conception, and unfortunately, I was dealing with factory issues, so I couldn't chime in then. But I wrote down a quick note. I'd like to roll it back to that, and especially since you brought it up.
Yeah.
Do you and Sandhills plan on having children?
No.
Okay,
we're not trying. However, if it were to happen, then we'd be happy with it. We've been told that any chances are going to be next to nil after chemo potentially. So we're not thinking that that's probably ever going to happen, but we've decided just to let God figure that one out for us. And if he gives us a kid, then we'll be happy. And if not, it's not going to be what defines us as a couple.
Okay. The reason I asked that isn't to delve into your personal life. And you answered it pretty well, because you guys are willing to take on a child if you're blessed with a child. For those of you out there that believe that life begins at conception and have no desire to raise any children of your own, stop having sex, okay? Because you go, oh no, I'm protected sex. Protected sex is not 100% effective. There are always oopses. So if you're willing to stop having sex,
you know,
I don't want any children whatsoever.
The only 100% effective birth control is abstinence.
I'm gonna cut it.
So if you're hardcore that you're not going to have children, you don't want to raise children, and you're hardcore that you don't want an abortion, and you or I'm sorry, you're hardcore that you believe life begins at conception.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you conceiving if you're not willing to raise that child?
Right.
I guess you could say, well, if we do end up pregnant, we'll just adopt it out. So I guess I can shoot down my own argument with that. But with the exception of that, you see how hypocritical that is for somebody to say that I believe life begins at conception, but I don't want to have children, or I'm not willing to take on children if I get them.
Well, I'm absolutely that way. I don't want children whatsoever, and it's cost me a couple of relationships because of it. And there's no desire ever since I was a little kid to bring a child into this world. But I'm also a grown man, and if I end up getting my lady friend pregnant, then I'm going to do the responsible thing, and I'm going to raise my child. But I'm also going to do the responsible thing before then and take all the necessary steps to avoid that. And yeah, I guess you're absolutely right. Abstinence is the only way to do it. But abstinence for the people who are just willing to throw anything. I'm willing to step up and take care of whatever happens. But I also feel like I'm taking whatever chances that I can to not allow that to happen. And I'm not, a serial philanderer. I'm not hanging from every, swinging all over the town either.
So you bring up a good point then. Let's say you've got a girlfriend or whatever, and she's pregnant, and she says it's yours, absolutely it's yours. We can go get a DNA test if you want, whatever, but she's going to get rid of it. And you go, oh no, you're not. I want this baby. I'll adopt it. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll pay all the doctor. I'll do whatever. And she goes, my body, my choice. And you get a lawyer, and the lawyer says, you can't take her to court for this. It is her body. It is her choice. Even if you were married to her, you can't stop her legally.
Yeah, well, what am I supposed to do about it then?
Yeah. So
right.
Just understand that sometimes choices are taken from you unfairly, because life isn't fair.
I'm totally aware of that. If a girl came up to me and said that she was pregnant and it was mine, well, first of all, it's not going to be a random girl. It's going to be the girl that I'm in a relationship with. And if she says I'm going to have an abortion, I'm going to say I don't approve of that. And when she says, well, I don't care what you approve of, right about then there ends our relationship.
True.
Yep, that's exactly how I would be in that instance too, David. Just out there in the chat, there's a little bit of talk going around of adoption, things like that. As far as our house personally, for those of you that aren't aware, didn't hear me say it earlier, I was adopted. So I am 1,001% in favor of adoption. So yeah, anybody who takes that step and invites a child into their house who doesn't share the same DNA as the rest of the family, my hat goes off to them, because it's honestly, it's not for everyone, but those of you that can do it or have done it, on behalf of every adopted child, I thank you. And I don't think that it's off the table. Sandhills Sweetheart has commented she's not sure our budget can handle 2 gun enthusiasts. So maybe the gun channels members aren't going to get adopted anytime soon. You'd probably rather have rich parents if we adopted you rather than us.
We could take up a collection and buy like a huge PSA gift card or something, so it's not an issue down the road. I mean,
well, okay, if we ever get pregnant or adopt, I will definitely let the gun channels members know that if you guys want to send any kind of PSA gift card or any kind of gift card to a baby shower for gifts, we would sure accept them. Okay. Shields, Cabela's, PSA, I don't care.
Owl and Anchor. Owl and Anchor.
Owl and Anchor.
Oh, yeah.
Gadsden and Culpeper. I think if that's what I want for my next Christmas present is a gift card to that place. I could spend a lot of money there. But in all reality, that is one of the options that people have, and we'll get into that here in a little bit once we've kind of moved away from some of these other topics. Now, as far as, let me throw this one back out because we've brought this up a little bit. Boob Sweat had mentioned it, and then his phone was about to die, so he dropped back out of the chat. If you find out due to ultrasound, amniocentesis, whatever, that a baby, a fetus, insert the word you want to use, but if a woman is pregnant and the child is going to be born with a birth defect, major health problems, things like that, but it has not died. We're not talking about a miscarriage or a stillbirth. This is still a living being, at that point. Let's say that it's got a heartbeat by then. Is it or is it not okay for it? I know this isn't going to become a moral dilemma here. I just want to know personal feelings from everybody on the panel. Is it okay to have an abortion to not have that baby grow up with major health problems or birth defects? Is it not okay to terminate that pregnancy?
I'd like to chime in if it's all right with everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah, me and my wife, we went through this before our son's birth, and that's one thing that opened my eyes to a lot of things. We're both in our 40s, and she had to stop taking birth control due to some of the nasty side effects, and she got pregnant. So we weren't trying to have a baby, and we really didn't think we could. Neither one of us ever had one. But because of our age, we were sent through genetics testing at the hospital. And, we were given a list of all the nasty diseases and genetic issues that they could be born with, and they might only survive what the fellow was talking about a little bit earlier, where they only live like 10 months and they're in pain and everything. And we had to have a very long talk about it. And we decided, and I've got a couple second cousins that have been born with birth defects, spina bifida, things like that. And it's, they chose to have their babies, but man, the money and the time and the pain that goes into that, we did decide that right around the 13-week point, because we wanted to do it as early as possible, if there was going to be a major issue where the child was basically going to have no quality of life, that we, unfortunately, we were going to have to put the baby down. We didn't want to, but, luckily he didn't have any birth defects. And we had him, and, he's 3 now, and it's fantastic. But if we had to face the same challenge again, I think we would make the same decision. And I base that basically from living on the farm growing up, where the lesser of two evils is putting an animal down quick. I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but I just wanted to kind of get that talking point in, that the lesser of two evils, like that was our decision. And luckily, the genetics testing came back good. So, and that's all.
Sure. So
I think every couple faces that because, and I also live on a farm. I've put a lot of animals down because, I know they're not going to make me any money. So you put them down because you don't want to spend money on them. But it would be different to decide whether a kid could be put down.
That's true. However, if any of you have ever been in the family law system, I have. They treat your children like livestock, dead or alive. And if you don't believe me, go through a really bad divorce and deal with that stuff. By the way, in Oakland County, Wednesday is family court day. And they really do. They treat your children like livestock. They treat them like property. In the eyes of the law, that is just either an expense or a way to generate revenue. It is not a person. It is not it might be assigned a social security number, and it might need to go to therapy or go see a doctor or need clothing to stay warm or something like that. But I am not kidding you when I say how cold and callous our legal system is when it comes to the overall well-being of our children.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you, Squib. I know for a fact that those judges and magistrates see those kids as kids, at least in my local family court. I know this because my brother is a family court magistrate, and I have talked with him about this very subject on multiple occasions, and I've spoken with other magistrates about this, that at least in my area, that is absolutely not the case.
Yes.
Well, I live in the wealthiest county in Michigan, and the way they treat them here it's a travesty.
Yeah.
Okay, Dusty, go ahead.
Squib lives in a very liberal county in Michigan also.
No, I don't. I live in a very conservative county. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, it's very liberal compared to where I live.
Do you
want to introduce you to L. Brooks Patterson, son?
So, okay, now let me ask everybody, and this is an honest question coming from my heart. If you find out that a child, and even, you know what, let's say that it doesn't matter whether Squib's right or wrong, or Budget's right or wrong, or whether or not it varies from state to state or county to county, maybe the government does treat the kids sometimes as, just a thing or a revenue source, whatever, but that doesn't necessarily weigh into if a child is born or is going to be born with a birth defect, Down syndrome or clubfoot or spina bifida, cerebral palsy, something worse where the heart doesn't completely form, anything like that. Is that child's life any less valuable than somebody who doesn't have to go through any of those issues when they're born?
When you're a parent, you are responsible for your child, and you're the one that's supposed to make the decisions for them until they're a legal adult. You sign for stuff, you pay for stuff, you're supposed to teach them right from wrong, all this other stuff. Even when they're in the womb, you're still supposed to be responsible for them because they can't make decisions for themselves, or they're not legally allowed to make decisions for themselves. If you as the parent decide that the quality of life is going to be so bad and that it's just going to be so severe, and then, I think it's up to you as the parent. Now, some people can say, oh, you're evil, you're a monster, I think each person has to make a decision on their own. It's kind of like whether or not you teach your children religion or not. Do you teach your children different, right from wrong, different than the way I teach my children? So this is an individual or a team choice by an individual parent or by a pair of parents, that it's kind of one of those things where I think that judging somebody else based on your standards, there's a time and a place for it, but when it comes to parenting, I do not like it when other parents try to judge me. And I definitely don't like it when people who've never had kids judge me on how I parent.
Okay. I'd like to say something about the value question.
Yeah.
We thought a lot about this. I don't think it has to do with value so much. I mean, when we were making the choice to, if we got the bad news about the genetics, it wasn't, it was actually, the child, we already had placed a substantial amount of value on a child, you know, the decision we were making had nothing to do with the value. It was about having the, you know, the best outcome. Like if there was going to be no chance of a decent life, then that kind of plays into that we value the child. We want to make the best decision for the child. And if the best decision is to terminate the birth before it, you know, starts suffering, that was our mindset at the time.
Sure, and I appreciate where you're coming from, and it sounds to me like you're coming from a place of compassion. I get that, but who's to say what is the suffering? Who's to say that, you know, and I know he's not here in the chat, and I haven't seen him out on the YouTube side, but you know, if we bring up Patriot in the Dark, he was not born blind. He went blind later in life, but had he been born blind, either way, Squib, I know you know the guy. Would he say that his life is any less fulfilling now that his eyes don't work?
Are you kidding? Patriot's so upbeat it makes me sick sometimes. I guess it's because I'm such a pessimist. No, see, you're saying who should make that evaluation? The parents, obviously. Or if they're a single parent, the parent. That's what they're there for. That's what their parents. That's one of the reasons I have a problem with the family court system. They go, oh, no. You're the parent. You're going to do all the work and you're going to pay the bills, but you're going to do it our way. You're not going to do it your way. Who are you to come into my house and tell me what to do with my children? Unless I'm hurting my children, and at that point, you know, once again, you might, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about anything. I'm talking about this is an unborn child and you and your wife are trying to make a difficult decision. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
This is not something anybody wants to make. Nobody wants to make it.
But I just
okay. Squib is kind of let's say you have this unborn child, and it's been born with I don't know, let's say Alzheimer's or something. So what do you do then? I mean, you already love this child. You're going to love it to death for the rest of its life. I'm sorry. I do not see making a choice because of disease. You know, you made a baby. You're excited to have that baby. It's born. Okay, it's not what you expected, but it's still going to be the baby you wanted, and you're going to love it.
I think it's up to the parents. I think.
Okay,
I don't think you should necessarily. Okay, you got to think about it like this: when your kid's in school and they are doing inoculations and stuff, you can sign a waiver saying I don't think my kid should get inoculated. Or when they're doing sex ed, you sign a waiver saying I don't want my kid having sex ed. Or there's other things like that you have a choice as a parent. I understand you can go, well, killing a baby in the womb is not the same as I get it, but I'm just going on the principles. They don't send these permission slips home because you're not in charge of what happens to your child. They send them because you are in charge of what happens to your child. And if this is a decision that a mother and father make together, or if it's a single mother makes, then that's their decision. Yeah. Right or wrong?
I have a child with epilepsy, you know, and we have raised her to be very successful. Her medical problem, we have spent a bunch of money and we've kept it under control, and she has turned out to be a very successful student. You know, should we have given up on her when we found out that she had epilepsy?
That's your choice. I'm not telling you either way what to do.
How would society react to, you know, we've already talked about like the situation where the girl, you know, comes and says, hey, I'm pregnant and I'm going to have an abortion, and I say, no, don't do that. Well, that ends my discussion. She's going to do what she wants to do regardless of what I say. Now, what about you flip the situation? The girl comes over to me and she's so happy, we're going to have a baby, you're going to have a baby. And I say, no, you're going to abort it. I'm a parent too. So right there, I don't want the baby. So I'm going to, is it all right for me to force her to have an abortion?
So, David, you can't force her to have abortion the way the laws are. But here's the thing. I think as long as
you to have an abortion, though.
Well, yeah, because men don't carry children. But here's the thing. I think as long as abortion is legal, child support should be illegal. Period. Period. If she can kill it, why do I got to pay for it?
Okay, now let me throw this.
Support also comes from there's teenage kids too. I mean, grown folks get divorced.
Let me throw this aspect back out here now, because over in the chat, there's been a few people discussing pain and suffering and things like that. People are born with all kinds of horrible things that happen to them. So why is it okay to kill somebody before they are born? It's not okay to kill somebody after they take a breath of air, no matter what their pain or their suffering is. If you see somebody who's going through horrible things, maybe it's not a birth thing. Maybe they were, burned in a fire, and they're in extreme agony, right? But why is it okay to not just walk in and plug them with a bullet? It'd be a lot cheaper than medical bills. Why is that not okay?
Because of the legal definition.
Say the law doesn't allow it.
The legal definition. You have to change the legal definition of life if you want to change that.
We're not discussing a legal definition right
but
now.
That's why it's okay until it comes out. The law looks at it differently. That's why I'm telling you. It's property. It's not a person. The law looks at it differently. That's why after it comes out, giving it a lethal injection and killing it is bad. But as long as it's in there, it's still not a person yet. It don't have a birth certificate. It's not counted. It doesn't pay taxes. It doesn't have a social security number. And that's why. I'm not saying it's right. I'm trying to explain legally why it is possible. Change the law, change the definition, and you make it all go away.
Which is why I say that it should be against the law to do it before the child is born as well. I do not see any distinction between the child before birth and after birth as one being more important than the other.
Well, here.
That's why I say change the law.
I'd love to.
Can I throw a question at you?
Go ahead, Frankie.
If a person is in an accident and they accidentally kill a pregnant lady and her baby, he's charged with manslaughter for both her and the unborn baby. But then she can just go ahead and kill the baby herself.
No, I'm not smart enough to know if this is true or not, because I've heard that is true. I've heard it's not true. I've heard it varies from state to state. So does anybody know the truth of that?
It varies.
Okay. So it can vary depending on jurisdiction.
Yeah.
But it has...
And really it can vary depending upon who the prosecutor is as well.
Okay. I'd like to see a clear-cut law for that too. If I had my choice, it would be illegal to murder anybody, whether they have breathed air or not, whether they have brain activity or not, because someone laying in a hospital bed after a horrible car accident, maybe they're not old, maybe they're 25 years old, but they've been in a car accident, they're legally brain dead. But does that mean that it's okay to intentionally take their life? And I'm not talking about...
No, they take them off of life support, but only once they get permission from the next of kin. You have to sign off on a DNR.
But let me ask you this, though, because if you turn off life support, that's not a guarantee that person dies, right? They could breathe on their own. I'm not saying that it's likely, but that is not putting a pillow over their face and guaranteeing that they can't breathe either. That is not the same in... I know I might be splitting hairs, but it's not tantamount to murder to take somebody off life support. However, taking an unborn child out of the womb is definitely going to be a murder. Well, unless it's a C-section delivery or something like that.
Now, do you mind if I go backwards just a little bit because I wasn't able to chime in on a comment earlier?
No, go ahead.
As far as pregnancies where the child could have, problems once they come out of the womb, I still think that child has value. Now, where I draw that from would be my own birth. Now, my mother had problems during labor. It was very early on where my heart stopped. They had to take me out of her C-section. They started my heart again. It stopped like 3 times and then started again. When I think about this, if she would have started having problems with the pregnancy early on to where she would have wanted to have an abortion, I would have hoped that she would not have, because I have lived a very successful life, a very full life. I'm married, I have a fur baby, I've graduated college, you know, I have family and friends. Now, taking that past that, she's had this situation happen to her, first child, I'm on tubes, no one expects me to live. She now has the option of pulling the plug, letting me die versus letting me suffer. She has no point at this point of the delivery if I'm going to make it, if I'm going to have brain functions. The doctors are telling her I'm not going to live past 14 weeks. I do. Then they go to she won't live past 7 years. She will be a vegetable. She will not be able to speak, learn, function on her own. Now, fast forward 30 years. I can do all that. I have no physical deformities at all, nothing like that. I have been able to go to school. I've gone to college. I've gotten married. Maybe I can have kids. Maybe I can't because of other health problems I had, but I'm pulled through having meningitis, leukemia at some point in time in my life. But, you know, if I had a kid and I went through that situation as well, I wouldn't want to abort it. Don't know if I can get pregnant or not, but I wouldn't do it.
You know, if I might, real quick.
Very good.
Our stories are just about exactly the same. I died 3-4 times the day I was born. They could have easily just said, you know, don't worry about it. You got another chance to do it again. But no, you know, they fought for my life. So we have very similar stories.
I have a bit of a different story. I wish I had been aborted. So I've been through a number of terrible things in my life. And if I had to go through them again, I would kill myself. So, and I'm not trying to downplay what everybody said. I understand and I agree that we just don't know sometimes how the quality of life is going to be. I have 2 second cousins. One has spina bifida and one has cerebral palsy. One is doing very well at age 11, and one is not doing so well at age 8. Now, you know, like I said, they chose to keep them, but it's very difficult to have a crystal ball and see what's going to happen. So I feel bad for people. I don't have an answer, but if I could go back in time and be aborted, I would definitely be aborted. Just that my life has been through so many unusual turns. You know, I've had strokes. I had an adverse reaction to a drug that left me with brain damage. I was placed into an abusive juvenile facility for 2 years. I had a very abusive home life as a child, and I've suffered many you know, physical injuries that. You know, horrible migraines, and just I'm not going to list everything, but the point is I would not do it over again. Life can be very painful, and I'm not blind, and I can walk, and you know, I've had a decent life at times, but I would not do it again because the negatives far outweigh the positives. So I just wanted to throw that in there that, you know, not everybody wants to live. I don't know if that's a strange perspective.
I don't think it's all that strange. I think that if everybody was honest, I think it'd be a lot more common than what you might think. But I mean, first and foremost, Tony, you know, I'm sorry to hear all that. It's horrible that people have to go through some of this crap. It breaks my heart thinking of all of the junk that goes on to people every day in this world. I still, you know, if we talk about your cousins, I mean, I still can't see a child, you know, with spina bifida, a child with cerebral palsy. I still can't see any less value in those kids versus any other child running around who can run and jump and play. Their limbs work the way that they're supposed to. They don't have issues like that. I still, in my mind, I can't wrap my head around how it's different. I just can't. I can't wrap my head around how those lives are any less valuable, any less important, any less fulfilling than anybody else's. And I just as strongly as I can't wrap my head around the fact that it's different once a child is born versus before they take that first breath or before they have a heartbeat or whatever. It's that kid's going to grow up to be what that kid's going to grow up to be, no matter how early or late in a pregnancy it would be terminated. It's still taking that life away from that kid.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm not saying that any of you that have health issues, that your life is less important than mine or somebody else's. I'm not saying you should have been aborted. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that as parents, you are responsible for that child. You make that child's decisions, and there's no book. Okay, yeah, I know there's what to expect when you're expecting and all that stuff, but there literally is no book. Yes, you can go to your parents for advice, you can go to your aunts and uncles for advice, you go to your friends for advice, but at the end of the day, there is no manual that comes with that child. You make a lot of decisions that are tough decisions throughout the entire time, from the first decision of should we have a kid all the way to, till you literally get them out of the house, and even then they still come back and stuff like that. The whole thing is you make mistakes along the way. You make choices, and sometimes you look back and go, I could have done that better. And sometimes you look back and go, hey, slam dunk, we got this one. There's no rule book to go by. There's no, oh, well, my way is the only way, or so when you're saying that somebody that thinks differently than you is obviously wrong, just walk a mile in their shoes. And they're the one that has to live with that guilt if later on they go, why did we do that? But I am not saying that children with physical or mental issues need to be terminated. I'm saying that's up to your parents. And for those of you who have health conditions that maybe could have gotten you in that predicament, be glad that your parents made the choice they made. Maybe they made the choice because of faith. Maybe they made the choice because of morality. Maybe they made their choice because they've heard enough quack doctors blow smoke up their butt, and they know that these guys are not always as smart as they say they are. But regardless of what reason they made that choice, be glad that they did and try to be the best person you can be.
I got a quick question.
Go ahead, David.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, but with all the new advances in genetics and prenatal care, do you think that the number of abortions will go up now that, you can see 6 weeks earlier if the baby's going to have Down syndrome, or the 6 weeks earlier if it's going to have blonde hair instead of black hair?
Actually, according to CDC, it's trending downward every year.
What was that? You broke up.
According to CDC's research, the number of abortions every year is on a downward trend.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
That's good.
I'd like to bring up another point, if it's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, we got a little crying toddler here. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately, and all these conversations are very important. I'm glad to hear people talking about these, and it's interesting to me because I don't really talk about it to many people. It's kind of a no-touch issue. And
we're all about getting into those here on our channel.
Yeah, and that's good. It's a place we need to be more. And in my thinking, what got me into this was looking at the data, like you were speaking about the numbers. Even though it's on a downward trend, the sheer amount of abortions that are performed had just thrown me. I never knew that these numbers were real. Yeah. And I started to think about, like, wow, this is not a problem that can be solved. But then as a scientist, I started thinking about, well, how can we mitigate? How can we diminish the amount without necessarily changing laws? or all the laws, how can we get, say, I'm just going to throw out abstract numbers, like how can we get 40,000 down to 10,000? Because saving 30,000 lives seems like a good thing to do. So instead of pitting people against each other and saying, well, I'm pro this and you're pro that, how about we get together and say, why are people getting abortions? I think maybe girls don't think they can afford it when they possibly could, or maybe they think they're going to not be able to be helped, or maybe there's something that we could do to help these girls or young couples when they're like, oh, I'm not ready or I can't, and have some education that's not biased, because Planned Parenthood is biased as hell, and a lot of pro-life sites are biased as hell, in my opinion. And for me, it was very difficult to find some middle of the road education, or information that people could go to and say, this is a good source to learn about it. And then maybe instead of this, this gentleman here that said, oh, this girl says she's going to get an abortion and I can't stop her. Well, maybe if she had been educated, maybe she decided I don't want to get an abortion. Stop it before it starts. And maybe that's just a pipe dream. But instead of going and saying, well, we have to overturn Roe v. Wade and do everything at the, completely 100%, maybe that's not possible. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, but people are still going to have abortions anyway. So let's try to educate people and maybe, save them. My son is 3. I'm glad we had him. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I want him to have a wonderful life. So because even though I've had a bad life myself, it doesn't mean I think that, we should go out and just start aborting babies. That's ridiculous. So I guess my thinking is, instead of looking at it from us versus them, how about we have these conversations and get educated. I've already learned a few new things today just from listening to you guys.
Well, and as far as, addressing the root cause of the issue, why are people getting abortions? I've thought about this too. And to me, it falls right in line with what most of us talk about week in and week out, in the gun channels community, with violent crime, things like that. If you look at, the last 50 or 60 years in our country, the family dynamic has completely broken down. And granted, yeah, some of us grew up with 2 parents. I mean, my parents were married to each other up until the day that my mom passed away. So, I didn't grow up in a broken home. I didn't deal with what a lot of you did. But at the same time, there's way too many people that are hearing my voice right now who did grow up without one parent or the other in the house, or they had 2 different homes or whatever. They didn't maybe know one of their parents or the other. The family dynamic has broken down, and I think that is where everything goes off the rails. And I don't expect everybody to agree with that, but it's my belief, it's my opinion that the people who grow up with both parents in the house seem to not go through some of the stuff as far as societal breakdown anyway. Not talking health issues, but just, tendency towards violence and things like that, as some other people do.
I'll support that.
Well, yeah, and I'm looking at some statistics here that say about 50% of abortions are from not wanting to baby and not being able to afford it. 0.5 is of rape, and 4% is health issues.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that our government is supportive of abortion, not just because of a Supreme Court decision and not just because they the reason they invest money in Planned Parenthood and things like that is because it's cheaper to abort a baby than it is to pay welfare for 18 years? Do you think that's why our government's behind it?
I don't.
Democrats are behind it.
I haven't necessarily thought about why the government is behind it. I don't see a flaw in that logic, and it doesn't take much for me to wrap my head around the government feeling that way as a whole. Again, that goes back to elected officials need to be chosen about more than just their budget plans, more than just their feelings towards the Second Amendment. There's so many different issues that factor into who we elect into our offices. But I don't necessarily disagree with what you said, Squib. I hadn't thought about it much until now.
My biggest issue with abortion isn't morality or religion or politics or any of that other stuff. It's money. I don't want 1 penny of the taxes that I bust my butt to pay. It's bad enough it goes to so many things I don't want it to go to. I don't want 1 penny of my tax dollars paying for anything related to abortions. That being said, if they said, well, what could we do to get you to say you want your money to go towards abortion? If so much as 1 red cent of government money pays for an abortion, I think she should have all of her stuff ripped out. You take all of the reproductive organs out with the abortion, and then she can never have kids again. So do you want the government to pay for it, or are you going to pay for it? Because if you want my tax money I don't want you to be able to go back and do it again. You put that out there, and some people might go, I don't want this government-sanctioned, government-paid-for abortion. Maybe that's the way you deal with it.
Could very well be. I think that I'd go a step further, but again, my opinion isn't necessarily all that popular. I don't expect everybody else to believe what I believe, but my opinion is if a woman has an abortion, she should be tried for murder, because I believe it should be tantamount to murder. What were you going to say, Dusty?
I'm agreeing with what you just said. Okay. I'm filling you in. Okay.
I had another comment.
Yeah.
It's all right to jump in.
Yeah, jump in anytime.
I was just thinking about, I don't know if I've ever labeled myself, but I don't think I've ever been pro-life my entire life. Earlier in life, it was because I was uneducated, and now it's because it's so complicated. And I dug into it this week, and I kind of realized that pro-life, by and large, by definition, is an extreme stance, which is fine. But pro-choice can either be an extreme stance or a moderate stance. Would everybody kind of agree with that, or is that?
Yes. I don't consider myself pro-choice. I consider myself pro-abortion. I don't like pro-choice because pro-choice is this feminist-backed thing that came up, woman's body, woman's choice. Now, do I think that a woman has the final say because it's in her body? Yes, but I don't want to look at it from that political aspect. That's why I say I'm pro-abortion. But I am moderate in my pro-abortion. And at the end of the day, it's honestly a non-issue for me. I'm more concerned about that politician, about how they vote on gun laws, about how they vote on taxes, about how they vote on things that are going to create jobs in this country, about how they vote on immigration, on how they vote on health care, than abortion. It's really a non-issue. And that's part of the reason why I can be moderately pro-abortion. Because at the end of the day, if they're not coming to take your baby out of your body, what does it really matter to you? Why is it any of your business? It's not your life. Do you want somebody kicking in your door and telling you how to live your life? Do you want somebody telling you that you're wrong and you're bad and you're for doing what you're doing? I understand that for a lot of people, it's killing a baby. I get that, but it's not your baby. So what is it your business?
Society determines what's our business. Society determines that throughout human history, what is and what is not acceptable. It's not that I'm trying to tell you what to do. It's what behavior is not going to be acceptable in our communities.
Let me ask you this one, Squib, though, based on what you just said. And I don't disagree with the concept of if it doesn't affect you, why are you worried about it? But then let's say that you turn on the news and you hear about somebody in Detroit who got mugged and stabbed and left for dead, and by the time the cops got there, the person was no longer breathing. Why should that be illegal? It didn't affect you. Why would you care?
The whole pro-abortion, anti-abortion thing has to do with an individual and their child, or a couple and their child. It's their life. They're the parents. It's not, as long as they're not asking me for money, and as long as nobody's coming to rip a baby out of my wife, I don't really care. It's just a non-issue. It just is.
But
think about it like this. We're all pro-gun people. We don't want the government telling us we can't have our guns. We don't want our government restricting our ability to own them, train with them, carry them, repair them, store them, do whatever in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of a property issue. It's kind of a self-defense issue. It's kind of a keeping the government from getting too big and taking over issue. We don't want them in our business at all. For me, when I hear somebody who's anti-abortion talk, they sound more. This is the way they sound to me. They sound like they're more into getting into somebody else's business, they're more into telling somebody else how to live their life. And even though I'm a Christian, you would say, well, if you're a Christian, how can you be pro-abortion? There are a lot of people that throw religion in people's faces when they're talking about the abortion thing. And I don't know if you noticed, but on gun channels, there's a heck of a lot of atheists. We have friends that are atheists, and we get along with them just fine. So maybe if the pro or the anti-abortion people didn't come at it the way they came at it, maybe I wouldn't be so moderate on it. But at the end of the day, I just don't see it as long as it doesn't affect my life. I got my own kids to take care of. I've got my own wife to take care of. I've got my own life to take care of. If Slutty Susie down the street wants to go get 6 abortions, as long as I don't have to pay the bill, I don't really care.
Sure. So as long as they take your guns and they don't take mine, then I shouldn't care, right?
And that's exactly you're exactly right, Sandhills.
No. Because taking the guns is taking away a liberty. Forcing somebody to not have an abortion is taking away a liberty.
Yeah, that sounds pretty fuddish.
It sounds kind of like
it sounds like a fud move.
Taking away a life is forcing somebody to not have a liberty of being born, though.
Yeah, there's more than one person involved here. You're worried about, taking liberties away from a parent or, a potential parent or something like that. Well, how about that potential life out there? Who's speaking up for that potential life? And am I being selfish?
No, you're being a social justice warrior.
Life?
When you're speaking up for somebody's unborn baby, you're being a social justice warrior.
No, because he's speaking for somebody who can't speak for themselves. It's different than being a social justice warrior.
That's what social justice warriors do. It's not their issue. It's not their thing, but they're going to speak out for somebody else.
They speak out for somebody else who can speak for themselves. Gary wants somebody to speak for the child who doesn't have a voice yet.
And that would be their parents. That would be their parents.
No. What about that child? The parents don't care. We just figured that.
All right, let's not talk over here.
Since we're drawing the parallels between the gun control argument and the pro-life versus pro-choice argument, look at it like this. The reason that we are against gun control is because we are for the ability for the innocent person to protect themselves. It is about the protection of innocent life. Being pro-life is about the protection of innocent life. That's why you can be pro-life and pro-death penalty, because you are about the protection of the innocent, someone who has done nothing wrong.
And then that's why I'm pro-abortion then, because for me, gun rights aren't about the protection of innocent life. So then I guess that's why I can be moderately pro-abortion.
I'm 100% pro-choice. I believe that every expecting mother has the right to choose between motherhood or adoption. I just don't think murder should be on the table. I think that every person who has consensual sex has the right to choose birth control. They have a right to choose abstinence. They have a right to choose what they're going to do in the event of a pregnancy that doesn't involve murdering another human being. I just wish that murder was not a legal option when it's somebody who doesn't breathe air yet.
Abortion to me isn't about all this stuff that we've been talking about. It's about life. That's all there is to it. It's about life, and where are we going to value life? Because we've already talked about the life and welfare of the mother. So what if the kid is 15 and the mother loses her job and gets put out of her house? Can she kill her kid then? Because her quality
because
of life
that kid's alive, and that's what it goes back to. Is the same. What it circles back to is the question that Sandhills asked to begin with. Where does life begin? And that is where the whole division on this topic lies. Where does life begin? Because if you believe that life begins at the moment of conception, then scraping out that ball of cells is murder. If you believe life begins at the first breath, then anything before that is fine. If you believe somewhere in between, then before that line is okay, after that line is not. That's what it comes down to. Where does life begin?
Yep, exactly.
That's where the division is.
We had a panel with 10 people on it, and we had not 10 different answers, but we had, 3 or 4 different answers at least come up when we went around the horn to begin with and asked that question.
Yep.
And you're right. And I knew that we weren't going to find necessarily common ground on all these issues because we're not all starting from the same square on the board. Yep. But at the same time, everybody who has joined this panel and everybody out in the chat on both sides too, with voicing your opinions. I mean, again, if we can get people just to think, even if you don't change your mind, if you just think, like Tony said, he's considered a few things that never had occurred to him before. I've considered a few things that never have occurred to me before on a lot of these different chats, this one included. I want to go back to what, 2 different former presidents. Let's start with President Obama, of all people. If we could outlaw abortion and only one child's life would be saved, wouldn't it all be worth it? And then again, there's something that I actually shared it on my Facebook page. You guys can go check that out. But President Reagan had said back when he was in office that, and I'm going to paraphrase, but he found that every 100% of people who are pro-abortion or pro-choice have already been born. And so again, Gary, I'm with you, Squib, but I'm not taking a stand against you. You know this. You know that again. Tomorrow we're going to be pals. But
yeah, I don't care if you guys are against me. I'm fine with it. I'm secure. I'm secure in my political beliefs or whatever you want to call it.
I know.
I'm not siding against Squib when I say
I can say this though. This is such a non-issue for me that it isn't even worth arguing over. I'll argue over something. I'll argue over people cutting me off on the way into work more than I'll argue over this. That's how little it. I know some people. This is something they can set up all night thinking about. Yeah, and I don't understand that. I just don't get that.
That and there always has to be
one of those, Squib.
Devil's advocate.
Go ahead, Frankie.
There always has to be the devil's advocate. So that's what you were, right?
Well, Squib loves doing that.
No, I do not. Okay. 2 things I do not like to hear on gun channels: devil's advocate and content. I can't stand either of those phrases. Ugh.
The real question, Squib, is how many letters did you write to President this week?
Oh boy. I just called him. Me and DJ Trump, we're tight. I asked him if Melania made those salads or,
DJ Trump.
Your messages are going to be full in the morning, Squib.
So, okay, that begs the question then, Squib. If you're tight with DJ Trump, are you also tight with MC Pence or no?
No.
Okay, all right.
How about DJ Bumpstock Band? You down with that?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, I think if we had put our efforts into the Shush Act and the Hush Act and national reciprocity and stuff, instead of letting them distract us with the bump stock thing that we ended up losing anyhow, well, we might have something.
I think that a lot of us did put our efforts into the Hush Act or whichever act it is, or the HPA or whatever, but that was tabled. And it was taken out of the realms of discussion.
I know, but people were writing letters about don't take my bump stock instead of going, why did you table this?
Well, again, anybody who thinks that the bump stock ban is about the stock is mistaken or misunderstanding.
But what I'm saying is we let them distract us.
Well, that's what Trump is good at, and I think that I don't know. I just personally, I'm not a pro-Trump person. I'm a pro the things that he said and the platform that he stood on. I was behind that, and now that he's waffled on over half of it, anything that he says from now on, I don't believe anything that he tells us anymore, and he's lost my confidence. I'm not saying that I would have voted differently had I known then what I know now, but I sure would have. I sure would have been more vocal about a few issues. but I'm just sick and tired of picking the lesser of two evils. I can't wait for a decent candidate. And
yeah, you'll be waiting a long time. We're all going to be waiting a long time for that.
You're right. At this point, impeachment wouldn't be the worst thing in the world in my mind. I would love President Pence to take over the reins on this project, but
I don't think you get any better.
At this point, I'd like to announce my run as candidate for president in 2020. Yeah,
Rabbi Collective 2020.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
You got my vote.
We're all about guns, free beer, and chicken. That's what the
Right.
platform is.
Oh,
That's
look
it.
out.
I'm in then. I'm in.
That's all we're about.
I'm
Guns,
in.
free beer, and chicken. So, you know, everybody gets some. So,
Did you free beer for the chicken, or
what's that? Who? What?
are we giving the chicken the free beer, or should Gary watch his back?
No, you marinate the chicken in beer, silly.
Yes, yes. And
I
then while
agree
you're
with
marinating,
you.
I'll get to enjoy the beer. It's yeah. There you go. That's it. That's it. I'm done.
You make beer can chicken for everybody.
All right. So Gary, you've been kind of quiet. I think you've got a few more things you wanted to get off your chest. Do you have anything else you want to jump in here before we go too far off the rails? Other than talking about, beer butt chicken.
And I'm sorry, Gary, that was unannounced. I was going to mention something earlier, but I just, I wanted to keep it under wraps until this very moment to tell the world. So,
what are you doing? Closing plugs or?
No. I was just I know that you had been talked over a couple times. I just want to make sure that there's nothing that gets left unsaid.
Nobody puts a rooster in the corner.
Well, I mean, just to continue with what I was saying, I don't think everybody looks at this from most of the time the woman's point of view or the parent's point of view. Hardly anybody ever looks at it from the unborn's point of view. And that's always the way I've tried to look at it, is that the unborn child somebody has to advocate for the unborn because they don't have a voice. And any thoughts I have on this subject deal with that. I mean, not with me thinking, this parent or that parent is evil or anything else, but the child deserves a chance to be born and live just like everybody else does. And anything we can do to that effect, to educate, legislation, I'm not real sure that it does what it's supposed to do. It drives people into back alleys and everything else. Education, awareness, maybe talking to your children and trying to raise people to be good, conscientious people and stuff like that. That's where I come from on this. I don't want to yell or get mad or, hate or anything anybody else. But I think we as humans need to think about what kind of humans we are and to value life, not only your own, but any unborn children that you may have put on the way to being born. And
when do you consider that unborn child then?
What's that?
When do you consider that it's an unborn child? Is there
an unborn child as soon as it's conceived?
Okay, that's great. We're on the same page then.
Yeah, we didn't even give you a chance to answer that question since you weren't here at the beginning, Dusty.
I'd like to add to what Gizzard was saying a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Topic. One thing I would like to do, and I'm not exactly a pro-life advocate per se, but if I found some young girl that had, was thinking about getting an abortion, I would sit down with her and bring my wife and say, hey, have children early. Even I know you're afraid, but when you have them later in life, there's a lot of obstacles that people don't think about. People think I'm going to wait till I'm older when I'm more set up with money and all that. And that's kind of a mirage. And from my perspective and what I've lived through, if you're, 18, 22, have the kids then, because you've got a much better chance of them being healthy. So even though my stance is moderate pro-choice, I would still try to talk them into having the baby. Because I also agree with Gizzard, like you got to look from the perspective of the child. I call it a child because I don't know what else to call it. There are many things you can call it, but to me, it's a child.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe we could have some kind of inroads there and say, hey, we're not trying to tell you what to do. but you need maybe a little bit of a real life education. You can have this child, you can afford this child, you can get some help. And when you get older, you're not going to be walking with your kid with a cane. You're going to be healthy and spry. And that's when you want to have babies. You're naturally supposed to have them when we're younger. And our society, unfortunately, has pushed the age of when we can financially afford them, up to 30 now? So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's all I had to say about that.
Okay, real quick, Sandhills Sweetheart has a few things she'd like to chime in with. So she's a little bit further away from the mic. Hopefully everybody can hear her okay.
So at the beginning, John said that I haven't always been quote unquote pro-life. I was date raped during high school, and fortunately I did not have a pregnancy out of the situation, but a friend offered to take me to the Omaha area if that had happened to have an abortion. And at that time I was considering it because I didn't want it to impede on my future. And the moment that changed my opinion was when I became pregnant with my child. And I lost that baby. And so from then on, knowing that I had another life growing inside me, just made all the world a difference, in my opinion and my beliefs.
And like she said out in the chat, it's been 16 years since you lost that child, and it's still hard. Still hard for her to talk about to this day. So, and I wasn't part of her life at that time, but it's hard for me just knowing that somebody that I care about went through that. So, so again, I mean, I don't know if everybody feels the way that I do, and my feelings are more of a projection really than personal feelings, because I wasn't there. I didn't lose a child, but sometimes I wonder when we get all caught up in the debate about whether it's okay or not to kill a child, what is or isn't alive. Are we doing a disservice to the people who did want to have a baby and it was taken from them, or do want to and can't? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think that I get so caught up in the argument about whether or not abortion is a murder that I lose track of the feelings of people who just wish they could conceive, or wish that when they conceived that they had given birth to a baby and they were robbed of that opportunity. So I understand that this is it's a muddy argument, or it's a muddy topic of a discussion. I knew when we decided to have this discussion that it was going to be potentially disastrous, just because it's can be a hot topic, right? I mean, I think we've done great. I think that any fears I had of it turning into a mess, I think those were unfounded. So thank you everybody for all your part in making that the case. But again, I mean, just for those of you who have lost a child, for those of you who would love to have a child and can't, for those of you who have had a child with health issues, have faced impossible choices. I mean, I don't want to make light of your feelings, of your experiences. Our hearts definitely go out to you, and I think I can speak for everyone in the panel as well, that all of us, we still try to be sympathetic and empathetic as we can toward all of you. So, all right. Well, I think that might be a pretty decent stopping point. Before we start wrapping up, does anybody else have anything else they want to throw in here?
I just want to thank everybody for listening to my nonsense.
Wasn't nonsense, brother. Wasn't nonsense. Thanks for reaching out to me and being part of our panel. You've now you know where to find us. And if you're taking note of the people in the panel and some of the people out in the I don't know if you can see the chat if you're on your phone. Maybe you can't, Tony. But if you just want to take a note of the names of some of these channels here, Gizzard Gary, Dusty, well, I tell you what, we'll let everybody go back through and give closing statements, and just name off your channel if you've got YouTube, gun channels, all those, so that Tony and any other newcomers might know where to find you. So we don't always talk about abortion. We're primarily a gun community and a Second Amendment community. But you know, for Tony and people like Tony, you know, where can we find everybody who's got some great well, Squib's got some really great content. The rest of us are putting out videos and stuff. So sorry, man, I had to. Squib, just because of that.
Yeah, I just threw up. I'm sorry.
Man, that was sucker punch right there, man.
Oh, man. I'll just let Squib lead off just because I keep shot in there.
Okay, so does anybody hate me?
No, I'm sorry.
They do.
Maybe just a little tiny bit.
Okay, good. Oh, good.
You need to try harder, Squid.
No more than we already did.
Yeah.
Well, you guys need to work on it then. Okay, so despite the fact that neither my wife and I would probably ever consider an abortion, we're not going to have any more kids anyhow, but we're not the kind of people that agree with that. I can say this, that some people that were pro-life before might have somebody in their life. They might find out that person had an abortion and they change their mind because that person means something to them. And even though they might think that person would never have an abortion, now all of a sudden it hits home base and they jump on that side. They jump over and they go, you know, I'm pro-abortion now because I'm trying to support this thing. Well, in the same way, we can get people who have always been anti-gun to maybe see that their neighbor, their coworker, their sister, their brother, their cousin, their uncle, aunt is a gun owner and is a Second Amendment supporter, and because they never knew, and now they know, and they've known you so long that maybe they jump over and they decide that they're okay with the Second Amendment now, they're okay with guns now, because they never knew that you were one of those people, and they don't see anything wrong with you. So, I mean, our opinions of people and our opinions on some of this stuff that gets kind of political and whatnot can go both ways. So, you know, just I guess make sure that if you've got a message out there that's supporting the Second Amendment, just make sure that, you know, you speak from the heart and make sure that you can back up what you say with facts.
Absolutely. All right. And Squib, where can people find you if they want to see some of the videos that you've made or catch you in other live chats?
So I've got a YouTube channel, a gun streamer channel, and a guntube.org channel, all Squib Load, 2 separate words, capital S, capital L on that. You know what? I'm going to go, I'm sitting beside my truck in my driveway. I just got home from work. I'm going to go inside and boot up the computer and scroll down and see if I'm still on page 3 if you type in Squib Load on YouTube. I want to see if maybe I've moved up in the standings. Probably not. But I'm out there. I make videos. I use free Windows Movie Maker software, so the quality is not great, but I have fun doing this. This isn't about money for me. This isn't about trying to convert people, or it's about hanging out with you guys and having fun. So even if my videos are kind of cheesy, or you go, it's just another boring train video.
Dude, it's all about the content. It's all about the content. That's what
I'm having fun. I know you're just out there playing devil's advocate.
Is playing devil's advocate, yeah.
But I really enjoy all the time that I get to spend on air with you guys, and just when I don't catch your shows live or I'm not a part of them, I'm listening to them at work, and you guys get me through a second shift factory job. Kingpin, you got me through today. I listened to your Saturday show, and it got me through the shift tonight. So I appreciate all the things that you guys are doing on all the different, maybe there's another word, I'm not sure if I like it or not, platforms, maybe. But I appreciate everything you guys do, and I appreciate Sandhills, you let me letting me jump into your chats, and all you other guys letting me on your shows. And I want to see more from everybody out there. And for anybody who's on the YouTube side, check out some of these people. Check out what they've got, and maybe subscribe.
Excellent, excellent. All right. Budget Guns and Gear. Closing thoughts from you, and where can people find you? Any channel plugs or show plugs you want to make?
Closing thoughts on the topic. You know, again, I think it all goes back to the first question you asked: is where do you consider life to begin? And I think that if you ask 10 different people, you're going to get at least 9 different answers, I think. So this is not a topic that, obviously this isn't a topic we're going to hash out in 2 hours of discussion, but it's something we definitely need to think about. And I'm glad to see that the panel and even the chat did not degenerate into a dumpster fire as I kind of expected it to, but it didn't. So, you know, good on everybody. As far as where to find me, for those of you who may not have ever heard of me, I'm Mike. I have a YouTube channel, Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, where, as the name suggests, I review high value to cost ratio, camping, shooting, outdoors, hunting gear, things like that, and of course, guns. You can find me on YouTube at Budget Guns and Gear Reviews. I have a channel on gun channels, which I'm pretty sure we mentioned earlier. You should probably go join. Also have presence on GunTube, GunStreamer, YouTube, CocoScope, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's either Budget Guns and Gear Reviews or Budget Guns and Gear. So check that out. Also at www.budgetgunsandgear.com. I also do a live stream here on YouTube, which is simulcast on gun channels, called The Right of the People on my channel, where we look at and discuss Second Amendment news and politics and the current events that have happened throughout the week. That's Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern, the only time zone that matters.
Yeah, not really, but we'll give you that one just because you're new here.
Just let it go, Sandhills. There's
Yeah,
there's a reason why
here.
we're in the center. Remember, all the great empires started off in the center, and everything grew out from the center. So
I agree. I agree. All right, Kingpin.
Okay, take a deep breath.
And anything that you want to plug for the channel or where people can find you.
Yeah, closing thoughts. Great conversation as always. I appreciate everybody's input, and I really appreciate everybody's story. You know, bringing what are ultimately strangers into some intimate parts of your life and being so free about it is very proud to be here tonight and be able to listen to the conversation. If you want to check out my channel on YouTube, it's Kingpin. On GunTube, it's my real name, David Bowling. I'm not too sure. I think it's David Bowling over on GunStreamer as well. Really, just do yourself a favor and go to gunchannels.com, get signed up over there, and you'll get to see a whole lot better stuff that I'm going to put out. Thanks for having me, Sam.
Thanks for being here. All right, Frankie.
Thanks for having me. It was a very fun chat. Go ahead and check out my YouTube channel if you want. I'm planning on having more content there soon, but I'll be honest, it's really, really cold outside. I really don't want to go out there and shoot right now.
Oh, just bundle up. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I know.
Come on, Frankie, man up.
It's probably going to happen on Friday and Saturday. I have it off from work, and I'm going to need to do something. And trust me, I have a brand new AR pistol that I just got done building. I'm going to get bored and want to go shoot her.
Her.
That's
She
awesome.
personified it.
Yeah, she's going
What
to
did
call
you
her
name
Wonder
her?
Woman.
She's
Wonder
my
Woman
little
air
glitter. I call her Tiny, you know, because
How dare you assume it's gender?
No, come on, ship
Tiny.
cars and guns. Ship cars and
Yes,
guns are all
yes.
she is purple, and she does have a little glitter, which you'll see on my video once I get done filming it. And And as always, I would recommend everybody going over to Gun Channels. It is how I got started and met all you guys. So, yeah. It's been a fun chat. Thank you.
Frankie, it's Glitter and Guns on YouTube?
For right now, yes. And then it's going to be changed to Frankie's Guns and Glitter, which is what I meant to do and didn't do.
Yeah, you can only change your name 3 times within 90 days on Google or on YouTube. So once you've changed it too many times, then you have to wait 3 months.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, so now you guys know, and knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
All right.
I think Frankie needs to shoot like containers full of glitter. Like instead of tannerite, just have containers packed full of glitter and just see what happens.
Can you put glitter in with the tannerite? It should work still.
That'd be, oh my god! Or put glitter on top of the tannerite and then just
just put a layer of glitter around.
Make it sparkle.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, like gun videos, you shoot anything these days. It doesn't matter, you know, pumpkins, plates, iron pans, glitter. It's time to do it.
We do have a shooting tannerite in pumpkins, so putting glitter on that won't be that too far off.
Just take some glitter and just put it in a plastic bag and just duct tape it around the tannerite container, and then when you shoot that, it'll project the glitter out into the air. Should work. Should be
sparkly.
Yeah, I'm all down with it. Sweet, I also want to see you make a trip to California at some time because I really want to see the video Frankie Goes to Hollywood.
Oh my god. Relax. Don't do it. Relax. Don't
take your AR pistol to California.
Yeah, don't do that.
No.
Relax. Don't do it.
All right. I know everybody that got that joke is shaking their head, and everybody that didn't.
You gotta be at least.
How did you know I was shaking my head?
I can see you. I can just envision you shaking your head. I heard that in your sigh. All right, we're gonna move on to Gizzard Gary.
So I have to follow a bad pun and the incineration of large amounts of glitter.
Oh man, life ain't easy, bud. Life ain't easy. Come on, man. You're the toughest rooster out there. You can do it.
I will give it my best shot. How about that? I'm Gizzard Gary. I'm on YouTube, Gunstreamer, YouTube, GunTube, Gun Channels, all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even stuff. Go to gizzardgary.com. You'll see a list of it all. Be glad to have you follow me. Have a weekly show on YouTube every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, called Foul Territory. I'd like to thank Sandhills Shooter for being brave enough to discuss this topic tonight and let everybody have their say. And I'd like to thank everybody in the panel and in the audience for basically taking part and not trying to kill each other out there. It was really good. So thanks for the invite. Enjoyed it. And remember, give him the bird.
Give him the bird. It's only brave because it worked. Had this turned into a Charlie Foxtrot, then it wouldn't have been brave. It would have been dumb.
Maybe next time.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. All right. Dusty got in here late, but any final thoughts and then channel plugs? Where can we find you, Dusty?
I'm really not a pusher of YouTube. I don't do any chats or anything, but the reason I jumped in was your topic, and you put a link in the Gun Channels chat. So I jumped in, and I know every now and then, I don't really do any YouTube content, but I jump on HVS every so often. I'm good friends with Squib, and the Squib has talked about you when we was butchering his deer. I taught him how to butcher a deer, and he was talking about you the whole time. But anyway.
Well, there's 2 kinds of things that people say about me, Dusty. There's the good stuff and there's the true stuff. But the good stuff ain't real true, and the true stuff ain't real good.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of thinking that too. But
oh my gosh.
I'm glad you let me jump on your chat, and then maybe we can get together again sometime.
Yeah, anytime. Hey, send me your email address, and I'll just add you to my distribution list. I usually shotgun these links, and the first 9 people get in.
Okay.
So, So yeah, we can. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
going to find your email address then.
Yeah, or just hit me on gun channels either way. But you can email me at sandhillshooter@gmail.com. I'll just put that in the YouTube side and the gun channel side over there.
Okay, I'll send it to you then. Maybe sometime we'll talk again then.
That'd be awesome. All right. So Tony was a newcomer, WD Tony. So any closing thoughts that you want to have? And then do you do things on YouTube or anywhere else? Are you part of gun channels? I guess I don't even know for sure, bud.
Not really anymore. I've got a kid, so I'm pretty busy with him. I used to do some activities years ago, but then, like I said, I had another stroke, so I don't really do much. I've still got a channel, but I don't do anything gun related on there. I just look at the guns and wish I could buy them.
Yeah, you and me both. You and me both. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for reaching out to me. You've definitely had some perspectives that nobody else would have brought to the table. So it was the chat was better for you being in it. So thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you. It's a pretty well-rounded group here.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty round. The rest of them not as much, but
hey, now come on. Credits where it's due. I declare to have a tactical muffin top now. Be nice.
That's right. Yeah. The tactical dad term, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, Travis, go ahead and any closing thoughts you want to have? Any plugs or where can we find you? And then we will say hello and goodbye to Night Strike.
Yeah. Just first of all, this has been an awesome experience being in this chat. It gives me hope for humanity that we can have a civil discussion on a controversial topic and not let it turn into, a cage match, which is what it usually is. So I do appreciate that. It shows me that we can still have civil discussions and learn something in the end from each other. Also, again, my channel, just check it out, Travis P11 over on YouTube and GunTube, GunStreamer, YouTube, gunchannels.com, all those fun places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram also. And then also I'm currently looking up the requirements to run for president of the United States. So if I can get this to work, I'll go ahead and run. Just let everybody know I'm putting in my bid officially this evening. So don't know how it's going to work. And I'm again, the platform is going to be on free beer and chicken. And I don't think I'll do a party. I've never liked parties, so I probably won't join one. We'll just call it the no party party. And so that's, yeah.
I was about to ask, what party do I need to register so I can vote for you?
I want to be independent of the independents. We're just going to kind of be like our own party. We're going to be our own little gang or something. We'll figure that out later. It's not a big deal, really. So that's right. So vote for Travis P11 in 2020. So there you go. But anyway, man, thanks for the invite. No, I do appreciate it. It's been awesome. It's a great experience being on this chat. Always have a good time, and just check out Caliber Corner Saturday mornings 8 a.m. on gunchannels.com. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Yep. All right. And Night Strike just came long enough to say hello and goodbye. So go ahead and plug your channel. And that's about all we're going to have time for, pal.
Check out Night Strike on YouTube. Check out guntube.org. And I'm going to start running for president under the best party of all, the birthday party.
Wow. That was pretty good. That's a good party.
Oh, my gosh.
I just figured I'd let everybody know, I'm running under the birthday party. Everybody can go along with that because, who doesn't like ice cream and cake?
Night's right. I'm giving appointments out now. You should probably stop while you're ahead because I was going to make you the technology commissioner, but I don't know if I should do that now.
I'm actually not old enough.
Travis, why don't you join me? You can be my vice president.
No, you can be my wingman any day.
We should start a party. It should, but not the birthday party because it needs to either be the house party or the block party. I think the block
beer
party
and chicken party. That's it.
Free beer. Well, there'll be free beer and chicken at the block party.
You can go non-alcoholic. You can go gluten-free. We cater to everybody's needs, man. I'm telling you.
The block party sounds good.
It's either that or I start the shall not be infringed party.
Yeah.
No,
I wish that
we shall not be infringed. That's our slogan anyway. So
there's already a party that gives lip service to that, but they
don't follow it. None of them follow it.
So all right,
we need a shall not be infringed party.
All right. Last but certainly not least, we have my official co-host, the love of my life, and she's sitting right beside me. Sandhills sweetheart, any closing thoughts, final thoughts you want to throw out there?
No, just thanks everybody for being here, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome. All right, and yeah, again, I just want to shout out everybody for making this chat a raging success, and I hope everybody shares this, just because it was as much an experiment as it was anything. I just wanted to prove that we could all get together, we could talk about something so divisive and still remain civil. So again, just thank you to everybody in the panel, everybody on gun channels, everybody on YouTube for keeping your heads about you. So real quick, let me just kind of scroll back up here and say hi to a few people I hadn't mentioned before. Again, we had Gunpowder Beauty in the house. We had Double A in the house. I saw a super chat come through just because he's a cool guy. So thanks, Double A, for that. We've got, is it Suey778? Bass Boy's in the house. Rich White is not going to pee in the fridge, so that's good. Yoder, Texas. 9mm Mia and Midnight Range TM both are here. I saw Rob C. I saw Rob D. There might be other Robs, other alphabet Robs, but those are the two that I saw. Poor Conservative. We've got, again, Glitter and Guns out there. Frankie's in the chat. Stealth Hunter 1000. Kingpin out there. Vanessa Kitty was very active in the chat. As I roll up here, I know I'm going to miss people because I can never go back far enough. Bash Matrix came in late, but better late than not at all, Vash. So make sure you catch this on the replay, and you can see all the good stuff that happened. There were no fights. We didn't hand out 5-minute majors to anybody, so that was good. Cam94 was in the house. We had Tread out there. I'm hearing good things about you, Tread, from Sig Sauer. So I don't think that's probably what the name was actually based on, but I'm hearing good things about the new rifle. What else do we? Who else do we have out here? We've got Squib was out there and was in here. Frank Hellman was very active in the chat. Most of these people are just kind of repeats as I roll up through here. I know I saw some other people. Boob Sweat was out there quite a bit. And I know I'm missing people, but again, thanks everybody who joined us. Philo was out there. I saw Gunpowder Beauty out there quite a bit. I saw a lot of people out there talking quite a bit. Never Enough Ammo was in the room for a while. Budget was out there and in here. Again, just thanks everybody for joining us, making the chat what it was. You can find us here every Tuesday night, 9 o'clock Central Time. You can figure out what that is in your own time zone at your house. Night Strike was out there in the chat and in here as well. And we lost Angelina. She had to leave, but thanks, Angelina, for joining us. This has been 2A Tuesday number 14. This was the abortion chat. So thanks everybody for joining us. And again, if you have anything else you want to add to the chat, go ahead and leave comments after the fact down below. Please share the video, at least just to get the gears turning, just to make people think. That's really all we wanted to accomplish tonight. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so, and then click that little bell so that you get notified every time we go live or every time a new video comes up. If you haven't joined gunchannels.com, you really need to. It's really is true what we call it, the water cooler of the Second Amendment world. There's something there for everybody. So it really doesn't matter what you're into, whether it's competition shooting or just plinking, hunting, muzzle loading, antiques, you name it. There's somebody out there that likes it too. And you can strike up a conversation any time of day over on Gun Channels. Make sure you check us out on Gunstreamer. Make sure you check us out on guntube.org. Facebook as well. Those are primarily the main places that you can find us. And of course, right here on YouTube and on Gun Channels. Twitter as well. It's Sandhills Shooter. Every place that you could look. The only thing that's different on Twitter, it doesn't have enough spaces for letters. So I had to drop the E at the end of Shooter off. So it's Sandhills Shooter, SHOOTR. But you can check us out all those places. And like I said, please feel free to tune in next week. I think we're going to get into some more of the red flag laws. I'm trying to get a few people from Nebraska Firearm Owners Association to join us to get into the actual law that's being proposed in Lincoln, and then we will talk about just the red flag laws in general. And I think Sarge is going to be able to join us as well when he's back from SHOT Show, so that he can give us a little law enforcement perspective too. So thanks everybody for joining us. You guys have a great night. God bless you.
Give him the bird.
Give him the bird.
Shut up, you fridged.
Adios, Felicia.
Not one more inch.